Every man reaches a crossroads, a point where words lose their power and silence becomes the only weapon left. And it's in that silence, brother, where everything changes. Most men never make it that far. They panic in the quiet. They misinterpret the stillness as defeat. And in a desperate attempt to be seen, they break it too soon, handing back every ounce of power they were beginning to reclaim. But silence is not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's strategy. It's the discipline that separates the man who's ruled by emotion from the man who masters it. Because when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop trying to remind her of your worth, she's forced to face the weight of losing you on her own. And that, brother, is where the shift begins. Her mind does not rest in your absence. It rewrites stories, replays memories, and begins to question the certainty she once had. But none of that can happen if you break the process before it takes hold. Every text you send, every call you make, every attempt to prove yourself drags her back into control and erases the impact your silence was carving into her. This is the art most men never learn: the courage to do nothing, the strength to hold the line, the patience to let time work on your behalf. Because in a world obsessed with chasing, the man who can stand still becomes unforgettable. So like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and start this journey now. Because what you're about to learn is the truth most men never discover. Drop a 1 if you'd break the silence again, or a 2 if this time you'd master it. Stay with me, because the very first thing she feels in your silence isn't peace. Let's dive in. 1. The shock hits. When you stop contacting her, it doesn't fade into silence. It erupts into her world. Most men think disappearing makes them irrelevant, but the opposite is true. Absence has weight. It presses on the mind and lingers in the heart. The lack of your voice, your messages, your steady presence isn't just noticed. It's felt in a way words never could. And that's where the real shock begins. What she remembers of you now becomes the story that plays on a loop inside her head. If you left begging, over-explaining, or clinging, that image replays endlessly. A man who couldn't let go. But if your final chapter was written with composure, calm strength, and unshakable self-respect, that version becomes the ghost that haunts her. She will relive it when the room goes quiet, when the phone doesn't light up, when the space where you used to be starts to feel too big. At first, she'll swear she's fine. She'll drown herself in distractions, nights out, endless scrolling, laughter that feels louder than it is, anything to convince herself you're just a chapter she's closed. But silence has a way of turning small details into deafening echoes. The sound of your voice, the steadiness of your presence, the calm you brought into a room. They all return in waves, often when she least expects them. This is the moment most men ruin everything, when fear creeps in. The fear of being forgotten makes them reach out, and with every text or call, they hand back the power they had just begun to claim. But when you refuse to flinch, something shifts. Curiosity sneaks in, nostalgia follows close behind. And slowly, she begins to wonder why there's a void where your presence once stood, and why that void is louder than anything she's tried to fill it with. Remember this: silence doesn't mean you've vanished. It means she's finally being forced to feel the weight of losing you, often for the first time. And once that realization takes root, it sets the stage for what's coming next. Because as the initial shock fades, something far more dangerous begins to rise inside her. An uncontrollable curiosity that refuses to stay quiet. 2. Curiosity burns. Curiosity is one of the most underestimated forces in human psychology. And when you go silent, it doesn't fade. It multiplies. At first, she'll do everything in her power to convince herself and the world that your absence hasn't affected her. You'll see the smiles on social media, the captions about new beginnings, the sudden burst of confidence in her posts. But beneath that carefully constructed image, something deeper is happening. It's not strength, it's bait. She knows you. She knows the small things that will make you overthink, the details you'll notice, the behaviors that might pull you back in. That perfectly timed selfie, it's not just for the world, it's meant for your eyes. That cryptic quote about moving on, it's not a reflection of peace, it's a test. Every calculated post is a question disguised as confidence. Are you still watching? Do I still have influence over you? This is where most men lose control. They take the bait, they comment, they reach out, or they check in just to see how she's doing. And the moment they do, the power shifts right back into her hands. The silence that was shaking her foundation vanishes, replaced by the comfort of knowing she still has a hold on you. But when you don't react, when you refuse to feed the performance, something changes inside her. Questions she could once ignore start to keep her up at night. Does he still think about me? Has he really moved on? Why doesn't he care anymore? Pride tells her to stay silent, but curiosity refuses to obey. With every day that passes without a response from you, the tension grows heavier. Her posts stop being for public validation and start becoming coded messages aimed directly at you. Desperate attempts to pull a reaction from someone who no longer seems to be watching. What most men never realize is that curiosity is often the first spark of regret. It's the quiet ache that makes her start questioning decisions she once felt certain about. And once that ache begins, it rarely stops there. Because if curiosity can't bring you back, she'll need more than social media hints. She'll start searching for real answers. And that's when the watching turns into something deeper, something far more revealing. She starts to follow your every move. 3. She starts watching. Silence does something most men underestimate. It creates a void, and the human heart cannot stand a void. The longer you hold your ground, the more that emptiness begins to work on her, pulling her attention back to where it once belonged. At first, it's subtle. She checks to see if you've viewed her story. She glances at your profile late at night. She asks mutual friends about you, but pretends it's just casual conversation. Yet with every small act, the gravity of your absence pulls her closer. What begins as curiosity slowly turns into a quiet obsession. Here's the truth. The show she puts on isn't what it seems. The sudden appearance of a new guy, the carefully staged laughter in every photo, the endless posts about how happy she is, none of it is real connection. They're smokescreens, distractions from a reality she doesn't want to admit. And that reality is this. Every smile is compared to the ones she shared with you. Every conversation is measured against the depth and ease she felt with you. Every touch is weighed against the presence and security you once gave her. And no matter how hard she tries, nothing feels the same. Still, pride won't let her say it out loud, admitting that she still thinks of you, still wonders about you, still misses the way you made her feel. That would mean accepting that she may have lost something irreplaceable. So she keeps her distance, choosing the only form of closeness that doesn't risk her ego. Watching. She lurks in the shadows of your online presence, replaying your stories, scrolling through your photos in the dark, searching for some kind of sign. And what she's really searching for is not just information, it's reassurance. Proof that you haven't fully moved on, proof that she still matters. But here's where the balance of power is either won or lost. If you react, if you confront her, show jealousy, or try to prove that you're still relevant, the illusion breaks. You confirm that you're still orbiting her, still anchored to the pull of her gravity. But if you stay still, if you let her search without giving her the validation she craves, something flips. The fear of being forgotten transforms into a deeper fear, the fear that she has truly lost you. And that fear is far more powerful than any message you could ever send. Because once that realization takes root, she's no longer watching just to know. She's watching because she's scared. Scared that she's no longer a chapter in your life, but a story you've already closed. And fear, once it takes hold, pushes her toward one inevitable move, to reach for control again. But before she risks vulnerability, she'll attempt one final maneuver. She'll begin to test you. 4. The tests begin. The moment she feels her grip on you slipping, the game changes. She might not say it outright, but deep down, a question starts to eat at her. Do I still have power over him? And instead of asking it directly, she starts to test you. These tests aren't about love or reconciliation. They're about control. They often arrive disguised as something harmless, a random message that seems out of place, a pointed comment on social media, a question that feels casual but digs deeper than it should. Every one of them is carefully designed to measure your reaction and answer a single question: can I still move him? This is where most men lose their footing. They take the bait without even realizing it. They respond too quickly, too emotionally. They try to explain themselves, defend their actions, or worse, prove their value to someone who isn't even asking for it directly. And in doing so, they undo weeks or months of progress. Because every reactive word, every emotional outburst tells her exactly what she wanted to know. She still owns a piece of your emotions. And if that's true, her respect for you starts to dissolve. Respect is a delicate thing. Once it breaks, attraction usually follows right behind it. And without respect, love has no foundation. But if you understand the game she's playing, you can change the outcome. The secret is to remain unmoved. See the test for what it truly is, not a plea for attention, but a probe for power. When you don't flinch, when you remain grounded and calm, something shifts in the dynamic. The tests lose their power. They stop being fun for her because they no longer give her the emotional feedback she craves. And that's when something remarkable happens. She starts to see you differently. The man she once thought she could manipulate becomes someone she has to reckon with. Someone who cannot be swayed by ego games or emotional traps. In that stillness, her respect begins to grow again. And respect, more than charm or words or gestures, is the true seed of desire. This is the turning point. It's where her sense of control starts to crumble, where the balance of power truly begins to shift. And once that respect returns, your silence stops feeling like confusion or distance. It transforms into something far more powerful. It becomes presence. And that presence will haunt her in ways words never could, because what she can no longer control, she must now confront. And what she must confront, she begins to crave. 5. Silence gains power. Silence is not the absence of something. It is the intensification of everything. With each day that passes, your lack of words, your refusal to reach out, doesn't disappear into the background. It grows heavier. It takes up space in her thoughts. And instead of fading, your absence begins to reshape how she remembers you. Her mind, desperate to make sense of the quiet, starts editing the past. It trims away the arguments, softens the conflicts, and magnifies the moments that once seemed ordinary. What was once familiar now feels precious. What once felt routine now feels irreplaceable. She starts remembering the sound of your laugh echoing across a late-night conversation, the weight of your presence that always made her feel safe, the warmth of your hand that once made the world feel steady. A song on the radio suddenly hits differently. It pulls her back to a night she didn't realize meant so much. A street corner you both walked past countless times now feels heavier when she crosses it alone. This is no longer anger, it's nostalgia. And nostalgia is a powerful, dangerous force because it rewrites the story in your favor. But this is also where many men sabotage themselves. They grow impatient. They mistake silence for inaction and decide to reach out before the story has finished rewriting itself. And in doing so, they pull her out of the world of memory and back into the harsh light of reality. A reality that rarely competes with the version of you she's built in her mind. When you return too soon, you shatter the longing before it's had the chance to mature. But the man who holds his silence becomes something far more compelling. He is not forgotten. He becomes unforgettable. He is no longer seen as the one who was left behind, but as the one who chose his own path. And that ability to remain still, to stay grounded while she wrestles with the storm of her own feelings, becomes magnetic. It's a rare strength, and rarity always draws attention. And the deeper that silence etches itself into her heart, the more it begins to stir something she cannot ignore. Because eventually, the longing it creates collides with the one part of her she's tried hardest to protect, her ego. 6. Her ego cracks. At first, her ego wears the crown. She's certain you'll come back, convinced that no matter how far you drift, you'll eventually circle back to where she stands. That confidence fuels her pride and reassures her that she never truly lost control. But as the days stretch into weeks and your silence holds firm, tiny fractures begin to appear in the story she's been telling herself. Doubt creeps in quietly at first, then louder, until it starts dismantling the illusion that she was always the one with the power. Silence has a way of turning the mind against itself. At the start, she feels untouchable, but slowly the questions begin to gnaw at her. What if you're not coming back this time? What if you really are moving on? And worse, what if someone else is now experiencing the calm, steady presence she once took for granted? That's when guilt slips in like a shadow. She replays the moments she dismissed your efforts, the times she was cold when you needed warmth, the countless times she assumed you'd always be there no matter what. Every memory that once felt light now carries weight. A familiar song can suddenly flood her with emotion. Even something as small as a scent on a stranger's jacket can pull her back into moments she swore she'd buried. This is the most crucial point, and the one where most men sabotage themselves. They misinterpret her silence as disinterest, and in their impatience, they reach out first. But every time you do that, you rescue her ego from the discomfort it needs to feel. You relieve her of the very pressure that would have broken through her pride. And when that pressure disappears, so does the insecurity, and with it, the desire that was quietly growing beneath the surface. The Stoics were right. Patience is power. This is where you must trust the process. Allow time and memory to do the work that no message or apology ever could. Let her pride buckle under the weight of your absence, because once her ego finally collapses, the decision to reach out will no longer be driven by logic or pride. It will be driven by raw, uncontrollable emotion. And emotion is always more powerful than reason. And when that emotional tide finally overwhelms her pride, she's left with only one choice. The mask will slip, the walls will fall, and there will be nothing left for her to do but reach out. 7. She reaches out. When she finally reaches out, it won't look like the dramatic movie moment you might have imagined. There won't be a heartfelt apology, a tearful "I miss you," or a long message confessing regret. It will be small, almost insignificant on the surface. A simple "hey," a random meme sent late at night, a subtle reaction to your story that seems casual but isn't. And you need to understand this clearly. None of it is random. It's a carefully calculated test. What she's really asking beneath those little gestures is not about love. It's about power. Can I still reach him? Can I still pull him back if I want to? Does he still orbit around me the way he once did? This is the pivotal moment where many men throw everything they've built away. After weeks or months of discipline, patience, and silence, they collapse the moment she opens a door, rushing in with excitement, confessing their feelings, or showing her that they've been waiting the entire time. And with that, the mystery evaporates. The strength that was making her feel drawn back disappears. The respect she was slowly rebuilding crumbles. The real power move in this moment is composure. You don't ignore her, and you don't chase her. You respond with calm, controlled warmth. Be kind, but not eager. Be present, but not desperate. Your timing and tone should communicate one message without you ever needing to say it. I'm moving forward, with or without you. Your life no longer orbits around her approval. Your happiness no longer depends on her return. You are rooted in yourself now, and that unshakable energy is what shifts the dynamic entirely. When she feels that, something powerful happens. Respect begins to crystallize. Attraction, which once depended on games and chaos, is now built on something real. Strength. And strength is magnetic. It draws her closer, not because she feels she can control you, but because she realizes she can't. That realization changes everything. This is not the end of the story. In many ways, it's just the beginning, because once she reaches out and sees that the man she once knew is no longer the man she can manipulate, the entire dynamic flips. You're no longer the one chasing. Now, she's the one wondering whether she still has a place in your future. And that question, more than any words you could ever say, is what keeps her coming back. So here's how I'd speak to you if we were sitting across from each other man to man, not as someone telling stories, but as someone showing you the strategy that most men never learn. This whole journey, from the first silence that shocks her to the moment she reaches out, is about one thing: reclaiming control over yourself. It's not about punishing her, proving a point, or winning some game. It's about becoming a man whose value doesn't rise and fall based on someone else's attention. Because the truth is, the second you stop chasing, the second you stop explaining, you start shifting the power back where it belongs, in your hands. At first, that silence will hit her like a storm. It shakes the certainty she once had about you. Then curiosity creeps in. Questions she once ignored start echoing in her mind. Soon, watching becomes obsession, tests become desperation, and the story she told herself about being in control begins to fall apart. And all of this happens without you lifting a finger, only because you had the strength to stand still. But here's the deeper lesson. Silence isn't about waiting for her to return. It's about building the kind of man she regrets losing. A man who doesn't need validation to know his worth. A man who lets time do the heavy lifting because he understands that true power is quiet, patient, and immovable. So remember this. Every moment you hold your ground, you're not losing anything. You're shaping how she remembers you. You're rewriting the narrative in her mind, and in the end, you become more than a memory. You become the standard. And once that happens, she's not just thinking about coming back. She's wondering if she still deserves a place in your life. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to Stoic Station and continue mastering the art of silence, self-respect, and unshakable power. Your next chapter begins the moment you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. Comment below, "Silence defines me," and let that declaration be the first step toward the man you were meant to become.